guys? Welcome to Soul and Soil Podcast, and you are rolling with Latanya Vibes. Okay, welcome to Collective Conversations. If you are new here, hey, how you doing? We're glad to have you here. Right. Today we're gonna do something a little different. Normally, I love to come on here, give y'all life lessons, share my story, but I was like, you be having a unique spin and take on certain things that be going on, like trending on social media, or like I just be a little too tapped in. Like I definitely play the I do not care about the algorithm. But your girl be tapped into the algorithm and the things that be going up on it, right? And I have my own perception of them. And so that's why I wanted to create like a cute little series. I'm not going to take it too serious, but if I see a story that I really want to talk about, I'm going to bring it here. But let's get into it. Druski, bring your ass to the front. Bring your ass to the front right now. Because I like the way you shenan, and I cannot wait to see you shenan again. Listen, today we are going to be discussing the recent viral TikTok video, or no, it wasn't really a TikTok, it's a skit that Druski did, and it, you know how he definitely been on them whites necks, the YT's necks, okay, the redneck skits and all the little like he been on their ass. He had to get on our ass too, okay. He was on the motherfucking the bald headed people, the ones that be hat fishing. He was on their ass, like he was on their motherfucking forehead, right? He's been on everybody's ass, and the thing is, I think that the reason why we all think it's so funny is because he's saying the things that we all genuinely think and believe, or we see and perceive. It's just this unspoken word not to speak on it, which is why I genuinely believe that like this motherfucker is a pioneer when it comes to comedy, but just in his own right, or just like as a creator, he's in his own wave of like, I like the fact that he exposes some things, but there's like hella truth in them, and also it's kind of shedding light in a sense. And he did just that with these skits. So recently he did a video of him basically being a mega church pastor. I'm sorry if y'all see some crazy stuff behind me, let me know, okay? But he basically did a video where he basically was the pastor of a mega church, and it starts with this man being suspended in the motherfucking air in a Christian Dior suit and Louboutin red bottoms, okay? This man is sitting in a nice suit, floating above the congregation, asking for obscene amounts of money to fund projects that don't actually like promote the wellness or community in any way. And it's normally a money laundering scheme, right? In a lot of these congregations. And I don't know, he did it in a comedic way, which is funny, but then also a lot of what is it, a hit dog or holler? A lot of hit dogs was hollering because a few of these pastors that, constantly graze our algorithm and our screens, this is literally what their congregation is built on. And it bothered a lot of motherfuckers to realize that there is clearly something wrong. Like, it's hard to realize or believe that the things that you have been worshiping, praising, and pouring into has been a false ideology, or that you were wrong, or I'm not even going to say wrong, but that there was a misstep in your discernment. And none of us want to believe that we are wrong in our beliefs, in our practices, and who we choose to convene with. Let's just be clear. I think that spirituality above politics of all is such a like touchy subject, because no one wants to be wrong. It would suck to be the person that was wrong, right? The soul that's wrong. And so like, let's get into it. So I feel like the reason why I wanted to jump on and do this video in particular was because growing up in the church, and I'm talking about Latanya probably had a Christian in when I was born, right? Growing up in the church, I have always, for one, I guess I would say, I'm trying to find the right word to say this. I thought something was wrong with me, or I thought that I was demonic, because since I was a child, I would see certain things and I would question them, but I would realize that none of the adults in the congregation questioned it, and they took it as truth. And if you question that, something was wrong with you. And I learned that from a very young age, meaning I would see pastors get up there and preach about certain things that like clearly they doing. So for instance, I remember when I was like in my teen years, and it's pre tattoos, right? I grew up in Kentucky, so I just need y'all to is given Southern Baptist Christian church, right? And so they got this young pastor. I'm not gonna put nobody's names out there, but basically we had a young pastor at the time, and I remember I decided I wanted to get guidance on getting a tattoo. Mind you, the reason why I wanted to go to this man is because he's the head pastor of the church and he's tatted up. So I'm thinking he gotta know something. He gotta know something. And I remember the conversation I had with him, and then I had a conversation with the lead pastor of the church at the time. And even those two, like the insight and advice that they gave me was so contradictory. It left me confused and it made me realize I could not trust adults, and it's going to be up to me to know what's truth, but it's also not up to me to break the truth barrier to everybody around me. So just because I see some shit don't mean I got to make it plain and clear to everybody. I have always had that, like, I find something out, hey, everybody look type of mindset. But then once you get crucified a few times, you just stop telling people what the fuck you see, right? You just start to take peep and move accordingly. So from growing up in a church like that and always kind of like how the pastors, because even the reason why I'm bringing this up is I didn't have my genuine real experience of a mega church until I moved to Florida. Let's get into it. So it was kind of crazy how everybody is getting on the mega churches when it's a lot of the small churches. So baby, if you're in a small church, you are not excluded. And the church has ranged from all church, like all religions. So whatever you, the mosque, whatever, a lot of us, right? We're looking at the mega churches like your smaller pastors are not doing the same thing. Right. And sometimes when it's smaller, you can keep what you're doing a little bit more tucked than you can with the mega church because you got a lot of people's eyes on you. But the crazy part is, even with a lot of eyes on these people, they get away with a lot of shit because of the hive mindset, which is like, I think I'm gonna do another video which will kind of like get into the psychology of certain things, because I love to pick out the psychology and the spirituality behind why we choose to do the things we do. Those are my favorite two things to study and like analyze. But it was crazy to me because I noticed that everybody's like, these mega churches, and I'm like, baby, you are not unscathed in that motherfucking skit, because it's your small youth pastor doing that at a little local church, scamming the whole city off y'all asses, creating cults in the backyard that are tax exempt. Because let's get into it. Everybody keeps saying the church is a business. It is a business, but guess what? It's a tax exempt business, and they can report their earnings. There's nothing tracking that. Let's talk about it. I know a little bit. Nonprofit. Let's get into it. But that's not even the point I was going to get into. So we have that part, but then we also have, so I grew up in that church, and I remember when I went to a Christian private college. So listen, LaTanya I got real insight from experience. I remember when I went to a Christian college, and I remember one of the biggest lessons I learned in like church and in that, like growing up in that midst, was Christ did not have to speak in some instances to show the favor of God, to show God's presence on earth, right? I feel like Christians, or just not even Christians, let's get into it. When we practice religions, it's very, very like easy to turn an eye to what everybody else is doing wrong because it doesn't align with your practices and your beliefs. It's very, very easy to persecute others that are within the like faith with you and literally point out their wrongdoings. But it's a little hard to sit with yourself and realize that all I genuinely have to do is like be the like embody that and walk in that faith. Like you don't have to convert people with a car. You literally walking like Christ, being of Christ. Like when people see you, they don't need you to, hey, let me tell you about my Lord and Savior, because they are getting that by just being in your presence. They are seeing him through you and your actions and your move and your walk. Right. But we've gotten so fucking far away from that in all spaces, because LaTanya definitely has dibbled and dabbled in her religions. But let's get into the point. Let me lock this door out of safety. The point I wanted to bring home is when I went to Christian college, right? I remember that we were forced to go to church on Monday, which I kind of liked it because they was bopping in there. Okay. I'm talking about that choir going to hit every time. And that's what gets us every time. It's that damn choir. That choir gets you. Oh, happy day. Next thing you meant, tithes and offerings. Let's go. Okay. Because that's the part I really want to get to, is the tithes and offerings. So when I was going to the school, I realized that these leaders, these spiritual leaders that they had at the head of these colleges that's supposed to be this like prestigious religious or Christian college, they weren't walking in the things that they were preaching. The rules and stipulations that they had for us, they were not actually walking in accordance with that themselves. How they handled people wasn't Christ-like. How they maneuvered with certain things wasn't Christ-like. And then I had one pastor, not pastor, well, technically, I don't know if I had one instructor, professor, that he was probably the realest person that I came in contact with, and it was my Christ and culture teacher, Mr. Joe. And he was the first person on the first day he started admitting his sins to us, which I thought was like, but tell me more. Like, I'm one of those. Tell me more though, because that's you cooking with something. You've been through some things. And I remember he admitted his sins to us to basically show us that he is a human, even though he is literally our professor in a Christ and culture class. He is no better than us. And in that, he also asked us to think about why we believe in Christ or why we believe in the religion that we believe, because at a Christian college does not always mean that everyone practices the same faith. A lot of us were there for sports scholarships. So again, that means you're going to have a diversity there since, right? But I remember he asked everybody, why do you believe in what you believe in? And if you say it was because your mom and dad told you to, because you have to realize at this time we were like 17, 18, right? In our early ages of life, a lot of the shit that we were believing was literally because we were taught to believe that. And so when he did that, he fucked me up for a few years. Latanya with 3-4 years trying to figure out what like life was, but it was the best 4 years of my life of like moving away, because it confirmed to me at that time the wickedness and things that I was seeing at church were real, and no one was going to change. And it's not up to me to get these people to change, but it is also up to me to go find my community or make the community that I'm wishing to see. But it really did discourage me from going to church, because I did have like the church hurt, which we talk about. Like, I think I talked about it on an episode, but I know that a lot of people who are going back to their church currently, the reason that they left in the beginning was because of church hurt. Now, fast forward, I'm out of school. I think I was, so 2016, took my Shahada. I'm Muslim now, right? And in that season, I got to see the love of God through other people, but also I realized that some spaces were not too much different from a Christian space, but they taught me a few things that I didn't learn from Christianity, which made me believe, like, at that time, how do I call myself Christ-like? Or prior to being Muslim, how was I considering myself to be Christ-like when I was condemning people that I didn't even want to give the chance to get to know? And I was only condemning them because it was a contradictory to my belief. And even though it was really small contradictory, meaning like in Christianity, you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, right? But in Islam, it is like Jesus would be looked at as a messenger or a prophet, not necessarily the Son of God, right? That is the biggest difference between those two. Some of the stories in the Quran are similar to the stories in the Bible. And honestly, I wish I was trying to learn Arabic so that I could actually read it for myself. I would get the English translated versions and read that way. But even in that, it kind of shook me, because I was like, hold on. If I would have spent my whole life believing what I was believing just because I was told to believe and going off the principles of the church, I realized at that time at church, I was learning hate. I was learning division. I was learning like just ultimate submission with no question. There were certain things in certain churches, not in all, but in certain churches, that's what goes on. And so fast forward, I moved to Florida. And at this time, I'm a spiritual girly, okay? I'm moon rocking this motherfucker. I'm making my moon water. I'm doing the things, right? And that was its own, that got some things going with it too. And we could talk about that on another one, because right now we're getting to the Druski and why this is relevant, right? So in that space, I went through some warfare. I went through some spiritual attacks. I went through some bitches putting some spells, okay? Sending that evil eye, okay? And God was like, hey, you're not under my covering because of some certain things you need to come to me about. And I had to, okay? He made sure I made time to come to him about some things. Well, I'm like, God, you see them people over there? He said, yeah, I see them, but I let them do that because I needed you to get closer to me. You was playing out here, living external, looking for external validation instead of seeking internal, because that's where I'm at. That's where I reside. Okay, so boom, get back into it. Moved to Florida, and now I'm like maybe I think this was 2023. Life whipped my ass, and I said, you know what? Maybe I need to get under that covering again, and I need to be amongst community. And so I found one. And as me and my kids like kind of traveled around to get to know churches, it was one of those things where I was starting to see a theme. It was like a full performance every single Sunday being put on, and I realized the primary emphasis on everything was the build up to tithes and offerings. And I really wanted to cover this part because for me, as God allowed me to learn Him for myself on my own journey, tithes and offerings, literally how they kind of depicted at church, is not tea. It is literally, sometimes we have to realize people are going to twist words, twist the word, twist regular words, twist facts for their own agenda and for their own intentions, right? And so I remember whenever there was a time in my life where I wasn't connected to a church, but I still felt like I was supposed to give my 10%, right? My 10% went into making sure somebody got food that I ran across. Like God literally put them in my path and they're asking me for something. I'm going to take care of it. Giving me opportunities to pour into the community that I'm living in, building connections with people, checking in on people. Like the way that my tithes and offerings does not go into a church plate any fucking more. And I know people that are like all the time. No, I'm saying the things that need to be said. And I'm sorry if it gets me in trouble. God got me on the back end. But for me, there was a season in my life where I was pouring my money into a church and I couldn't ask that. And I'm telling y'all from personal experience, I couldn't ask that church to pay my electric. I couldn't ask them to pay my rent one time because something went through. Whenever that whole situation happened with the government shut down, a lot of churches, especially the lady who did that experiment where she was calling the churches and asking for formula to expose y'all's churches, even in that sense, like that was my wake up call. I said, even the little 10 I was given, I said, hold on, I need to check the spirit. And what I realized is when we're going to church, we spend so much time persecuting the externals, everyone that's not within y'all's community. And then when you're not judging the people on the outside of the community, you're judging each other about who's closer to God because I do this and I wear this and I'm a part of this organization, all the things, right? And then when you're not judging each other, I feel like the only thing that we have never done is turn and look at the leader. Because even a leader needs checks and balances. The government's supposed to have checks and balances, and you see where that's going. So that's why I'm saying if we're going to be using, or if we're going to be relying on these places to be your spiritual guide, to connect you to God, which again, I believe that your connection is internal and you need to turn in or turn up, right? But turning around and expecting these people to lead you when they are genuinely trying to be what they're supposed to be, walking on their own journey with God, but giving them thousands of dollars to continue to push certain agendas that are hurting people, giving them access to money that really, if we took that money amongst ourselves and really turn into the community that we're living in and start creating programs, seeing a home, buying a home, putting it, one of the elders that you see that's never owned a space and is paying rent and can't. There's nobody. Why is a 60-year-old woman, 80-year-old woman working at Walmart and then coming to the congregation and giving 10%, 20%? And I don't have an issue about pouring back into the church. That's not my thing. But I do believe that this needs to be a reciprocal relationship. And when you're getting a dynamic where it's like you're pouring, and the only thing you're getting fed is words, that's abuse. That's love bombing. That's a transactional relationship, because as soon as you can't pour, then you're not valuable anymore. And I'm going to say personally, I have been able to go to churches where it wasn't that type of vibe. The church I currently go to, the reason why I'm over here kind of like, because like you only know what people allow you to see. And if you're thinking about it genuinely, I'm only in the church 1 hour on Wednesday and two hours maybe on Sunday. That's not too much to be able to make a judgment. But what I'm going to tell y'all is, since I was a child and now even going into now, I feel uneasy at certain churches where they highlight and promote tithes and offerings, and it feels like you're getting bullied, because there's been so many times where I only had $1 and they made me feel shitty. But guess what? That dollar was a ramen noodle pack, maybe pre like 2023. That was a 6-pack ramen noodle that could have fed me and my kids, but I would give it up because I was like, dang, this is all I got. God's going to provide. God's going to provide. And he did, right? Because in my own connection, in my own faith that I was building in relationship, there was ways that he provided. But I want you to know that it wasn't a sister or brother doing that. or intervening. But I did have, when I was Muslim, there was that covering. I'm gonna be real. I seen a whole entire way a community navigated whenever I was Islam, practicing Islam versus whenever I was practicing Christianity. And the thing is, I was so new to it because I was practicing Christianity since a child. I was only practicing it because I was told to. But even then, it's kind of like, if y'all are not like checking y'all leaders, or if you don't move, it's like, I understand you can't literally stand in church and be like, leader, leader, leader. Like, you can't get up on there calling a person out. He's a liar. Why do you have them shoes? Because you will literally get exiled. And we've seen it in that one video where the lady did not give the pastor a hug, and that lady decided to make her a beginning sermon about the lady not giving her a hug, trying to make her feel like something's wrong with her. And here's the rest of the congregation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? I thought that was your sister. And the way, LaTanya, you do that to me, I might forget that we're in church. God, we're flipping tables and wigs. And bald-headed men that keep picking up mics. Sorry. And the ones with the two braids. The little dread on the top. The little waves. But okay, let me stop. I'm getting real personal. But no, I wanted to say, like, my only take, and the reason why I said, Druski, bring your ass to the front, is because I felt like that skit was so necessary in a time like this, with a lot of young, like the younger generation and the millennials seeking source. And we're just going to say source to make this a collective convo, right? I noticed that a lot of the younger generations are seeking source. And so it's only right for us to go back and go ahead and shift some things. And not shift some things doesn't mean that we go on a witch hunt to expose everybody and like create fear. It's about literally starting to find the leaders that are genuinely walking in the mission, not preaching about a mission, but you see their walk. And I'm gonna let you know, a lot of the walks that people are genuinely doing are not going to be televised. They're not going to be on a social media skit because you're actively doing it. I'm telling you from my own personal experience, when I'm genuinely moving in mission, whether that's going into an event and like creating whatever it is, like say for like, I'm giving an example. Whenever we do Orlando Rescue Mission, that originally started out as us just cooking dinner, going in there, bobbing it out with them and giving them some resources, right? When I'm doing that, I don't have time to set up a camera everywhere and do that because I'm in mission. Okay, I'm serving, I'm talking, I'm doing things, you're engaging. And when you're doing that stuff from a in pure space, that camera don't matter. And so what I'm trying to say is the leaders that we're looking for and seeking, we need to be in community to find them. We got to be in community to see them. We got to be willing to see the wrong ones and move out accordingly and stop funding the church that you see is literally using the funds for wrong. Make them take that money that they are taking out that plate and cashing it into their bank account. Let them cover them costs for a month to see what they do. See if that preaching and the prayers change. Because like Druski said, did you pay tithes? Roll's window up. Get the fuck up out of here. That's how it be. And that lady's, the funny thing is, he did that video of months after she literally was, and that's why I was like, I feel like, why are y'all mad at Druski for doing it? But you wasn't mad whenever your small creators was exposing the church. Clock it. But that's my legs. That we done. We done right here. Thank you for tuning in. I have a new story coming up. I wanted to cover Linda Brown, the Chicago teacher, and my perspective on how social media literally will jump to conclusions before seeking solutions. And so we out of here. I love y'all. Bye.